Okay, so we came to page Reish Kaf Vav, and we're now on number Kuf Aleph. They've been talking like this. I'll read the black print here. Lo choyed sark lichiyos techetchedes elachut b'knas rabi, because he said that it finished it finished the count of 32 by adding this fourth string, or fourth set. So he said, "Im came the fee zecha b'choyed sark lichiyos chut techeles ak v'rak b'knas rabi." So then, if that finishes up, so that each one of them therefore has 8 different letters. He says in their miloyim arba kanfos atzitzis hem connected arba miloy Yaakov, because they correspond to 4 different combinations of Yaakov, as there are 4 different combinations of Abaya. Both and Shekanah for Rishon who connected Yaakov the Av v'Raviyesh b'miloy zecher b'ches osios. Connected ches chuti loven, and then there's 5 going to be chutim of loven. V'ken kanav sheni you could neged Yaakov de milu isag v'yet b'milu izeh ches osius. Now this is 8 letters. Who connected ches chuti lovan. V'ken kanav shlishi who connected Yaakov de milu ima v'yet b'milu ches osius connected ches chuti lovan, and then they once again 5 chutim of white. Baba Kanafa Ravi who connected Yaakov to Hain, but that one which corresponds to the last Yaakov. He said that Ein Bamilu Ezechaki Im Sheva Osius Bilvad, it only has 7 letters. So then you only have 7. Each chut represent one of the letters of the Milui, and you only have 7 there. So therefore they take a blue-green color, the Malchut l'chashlimam l'shmona chutim, and he says, what? They take it from Malchut. V'im came the fee zecha v'nimsiki hoyet tzarek lihiyos chut techelis rak b'kanaf v'revi levado. So that only needs to be over there. So what do you have them on all the rest? Shehu keneged Yaakov d'milui hayim. 1 second. So he says now that he said below hoyet tzarek l'chatil. The Cheder b'shara shalosh is a kanfos. You don't have to put Chedus every place. The Cheder b'kanafa rishon shehu connected Yaakov the Av b'kanafa b'chashedi, which is connected Yaakov the Sag b'kanafa shlishi shehu connected Yaakov the Ma. So he repeats himself several different times. Became shmona osius connected shmona chuti 11. So since they refer to those 8, each one of them has 8 letters. That does seem to be a stira, because they're showing by themselves, each one representing one of the letters of the Miloi. So as he is explaining, so he said, but the main part of this is from the fourth kanaf, specifically, Shehu Mekavah Neged Yakdahain, Bisham Nitzarach Chut Atachedus Kedei Lahashlim as Mispach Tzitzios, the Lamed Beis Chutim, and that's the only one that you need this for. Bishum Shach Kanaf Revi, why that one? Who's the kanaf to Milui Hayin? Shebel Rak Sheva Osius, so it's Chaser. V'lechem Sham. Sham chaser es achut ha'echad. It's missing 1 string. Shal t'tachezes v'gedei la'ashlim l'ches chutim. So I think it's where lechem som. No, sham chaser es achut ha'echad, so it's missing 1, and so therefore we fulfill it with the t'chezes. So Shazeh HaKanach B'Revi the Yaakov the Milui Hayim, because this one he's a Romas the Malchus. It's a reference to Malchus, and like I said, my suspicion is that when he starts talking to all of these different combinations of numbers, he's always some way talking about Malchus. That's the next question: is why do you have it every place else? Because the other places are already 8s. And if you're talking about that each one represents one of the letters of the Milui, of the Shem with the Milui, So therefore, that's the only one that's really affected. Who rock b'derek remet bilvad. So it's only a remes. Ki shloshes kanfot tzitzitas b'ramazim the shlosha milu Yaakov v'rishonim, which are Yaakov the Av, Yaakov the Sag, Yaakov the Ma, Kol Elohim Zacharim. So all of these, he says, are male, right? They're all pouring downwards. They're going from the top to the bottom. And since they're male, he says, so therefore they really don't need the chelus. Who rock the remes ba'alma. Okay, so he said that. So now he said, and let's talk about that one. He says, Shasham yesh rak sheva osius, the only 7 letters, v'chaseira os shmini b'kedei shtushlam b'misper shmona chutim. So in order to be able to complete it into that. So now he says like this: we're not taking Malchus itself, no. Because if we take Malchus itself, because then instead of being a Yaakov, it would become by adding a hay to it, you would be making it a complete havaya. Which does not represent actually how that Yaakov works. So there we're now change the page. We're on Reish Kaf Ches. It says so you're still dealing with the same Yaakov. Excuse me, Kanfos, like you have on the other 3. And we are given the fact that that is what it is. I mean, that is the count of the Malchim. So therefore we can't say we're taking Malchus itself in order to be able to fulfill that last letter. In other words, you can't make it into a Yud Kei Vav Kei. It is what it is, which is the Milu of Yaakov at the Hayin. Shahare Oz Shem Yaakov Yushlam V'Yichavai Shalema. So therefore we have to say like this: everything that we're teaching, that we're learning, looking at the Malchus Shehit Techelis, we're taking Malchus. Malchus is this color, this blended color, B'Kedei Lahashlim as Oz Chaser V'Kanaf Revi. So I'm not sure what exactly it is. He says you can't take the letter. You can't change the nature of the 3-letter form of the name Yaakov, which is part of the combination of the letters. You can't change you can't add a combination onto it. And so what do we do in order to be able to fill that in? Looking as Osius Shem Havaya de Ben Milui. And so then you go to a different process, he says. You take the letters of the Milui of the Milui. So what do we got then? So what are we talking about here? So this seems like it's in outer space. How are you going to do this? He said, B'Shem Avaya yesh shtei hayin. There are 2 hayins. So let's talk about this, the second hay. Shehi hay achrona shel Shem Avaya, which is the last hay of the Shem Avaya. Now let me see what it says. B'Shem Avaya, he says that Yud Kei Vav Kei, there's a first Yud and then there's a second Yud. So he said, let's talk about the last one, because the last one is the one that normally represents Malchus. B'Shem Havaya Kolulim Chamesh Partsufim. So in the name Havaya itself, there are always 5 Partsufim, and so here we're going into a side path. V'heim B'Sod Zen, they go like this. If you this is things that we already know. The kutz of the Yud is Erik Anpin, and which is Kasser, and then the Yud itself, Atzma, he Abba, Shehu Chochma, Vehe Rishayna, he Ima, Shehi Bina, Vehe Havav, who Zer Anpin, Shabo, Sheyesh Kitzvahs, which are Chagat Nai, Vahe Achrona, who Nuk, Vehi Amalchus. So the final Hay refers to the Nuk. Now, the Min Oz Hey Achrona, so let's look at that. Shal Havaya Cholelis, which is of this Havaya that we just talked about, the complete parts of Yotzer Shem Havaya Shalom. So then with this, it makes a complete Yud Kei Vav Kei V'hu Havaya B'Milui Hein. So I'm not sure exactly what he said there. Let's see again. Shazu Havaya Deheim Romezes the Malchus. So we already know that the Havaya Deheim is Malchus. So also the final letter, hey, Romezes the Malchus Shahu Nuk, which is female. Right. So what? Being Nikav Shem Havaya the Milui Hey. And so let's take that. So he's over the Sada Bimeno as a milui, and take instead of the milui, take the milui shabo shuhu madrega hatishiz madrega sarapach. Okay, so you can make it into the milui. I'm not sure exactly how this reference works with the rapach. He says the timsa ki minyan osis a milui the milui hemavaya the milui hayan, which is let me, I think it's right. Minyan Osius a Milui the Milui Shem Avaya the Milui Hayan. So he said, which has 23 letters in it. So he said Communion, and it actually comes to the gematria of Chut, which is 8, 9 to 17 plus 6. It gets you 23. So let's see. Of a Hakaf Gimel Osius. Now this is really Malchus deck right here. So he says the 23 letters that we're talking about now of the Milui come out to be the gematria of the word Chut. V'chakaf Gimel Osish of the Milui the Shem Mavaya the Hayan, who Olu Kamizbar Chut Shuhu Gematria Kaf Gimel, which has that same gematria. These are the ties that bind Malchus. So he said who Romas al Chut at Techelis. So this is really a reference to the Chut of Techelis. Now you say, how could that be? He says the ChelisAmishalim as Osa Cheserim B'Shem Yaakov the Milui Hayan. He says the only way that you can understand how you could do this and fulfill this with, we're trying to answer the question, how does bringing in the Techelis solve all these problems? So he says you take the name the Milui of Yaakov of Hayan, and it comes out to be 23 letters, which is the same gematria as Chut. So that's like taking this combination makes a thread. And he's going to spell it out for it. For us, the Yud comes out Yud Vav Dalad Vav Vav Dalad Dalad, and then goes through all of those things, which we could see right here and review them later. So add them up. He says you find out there's 22. But now he adds in, and this is particularly what I want to say, particularly difficult for me to appreciate the fact that he's able to do this at different times. He adds in a kolel. V'ima kolel, it comes to be 23 letters. Ha'oda b'gematria chut. Now we're going back over that ground again. Now we have the concept of a chut, but we have to go into the milui. Seder kasibas avavim. So he says the way that the order of writing the vavim, the shem zechet b'milui alofim with milui alofim. V'gam shachadayim chesera elef achas. Adayim srichen nevara v'od chazon lamoed. Now let me see what he said. I'm not sure I understood what he said. He said seder kasibas avavim. Now which vavim? He's a vav vav, vav alavav, and vav alavav. There's 1, 2, 3 vavim here. One is a vav vav, and the other two are vav aleph vavs. So he says, let's see it again. He says, ve'elu ha'osius hem kaf beis in the kolol, or they make 23. Ha'oda gematria chut. So he says, seder kasivas avavim, the shem zecha b'milui alofim, v'gam masha chadayim chesera aleph achas, and then one of them is missing an aleph. Okay, so fine. Adayin Sricha Nevara, this is something that we have to explain at another time. He said, for Od Chazan Lamoa, there's going to be a good time for that coming up. So, but anyway, I'm not sure what he just did there. But let's say, Al Yedecha B'Shem Hamali, the Milui Hayan. So now you got the Milui. Sheyesh Bo Kaf Gimel Osis, Kamis B'Chut, it's actually only 22 letters. But we add the koilol here, and it makes it 23, which is the gematria of chut. Now, like I said before, his conclusion is what? That now you have the concept of a chut in the milui. B'zeh nishla malchut hachaser b'kanafa revi. So that therefore the milui becomes that part which is missing. Okay, but you have to get the techelas. Shuchu yakol the milui hayin. Shebemilui zeh v'yesh rak sheva osis. Now this is the problem that originally was on 7 letters. V'gnegdam yesh sheva chutim lovan b'kanaf a revi. So all the white ones are accounted for. The problem is there's no 8th one. So he's trying to reach over here to the milui and bring this down. V'chachuta shemidia b'chased nishlam al yedech b'shem hazeh shows you also the communion chut that has letters which come to the gematria of chut. So now, no, you could do that. That I don't know how that works, but that's what he did. So now you got your extra string. This all comes about by being able to use the 22 letters of the milui plus the root of them like that. Because this name then is the secret of Techelis. Now, now, this to me, this is just how he got the word. How from this thought, how you made it into this blue-green color. I could see how you dug down and you found a way to be able to find another string in there, that the chut. So he said, but let's go on. And exactly how it got to be that color, I don't know, unless I should have learned it and I forgot already. So the word chut, you won't find it anywhere in the Torah. Because there, the word chut is put onto the word pasil. And the pasil goes with the word techelis. Below the emer chut techelis. It doesn't say a string. So you're dealing with this. You went big argument to make it a 23, so that therefore you could say that it's a chut. But unfortunately, the Torah doesn't talk about a chut. It talks about a pasil. So why does it specifically say pasil and not chut? Who the Ramos? It's for a purpose of hinting at something, which is what. Malchus are remezes the techelis. The Malchus now he says that's really what you're wanting. This is pshat. Malchus is the blend of these colors. I haven't seen him mention the concept of blue before. I mean, obviously we have the blue sky, we have a lot of blue, but he really just talks about white, red, and green. So exactly how the blue comes in here, I haven't seen it yet in my limud. So it's called that. Now let's go this more clearly. He says this last string. The last string is this pasil, the techelis, which is a reference to that color is Malchus. And then he says, Gam hi kolula bepratusa me'es spheres pratius. And Malchus has 10 spheros. Shal Malchus shehi chavai de milui heyin, lihi yos kolula me'es spheres pratius. So since it has 10 spheros amongst that milui of heyin, nimsa sheyesh ba pratusa. So it comes out that it has in its detail Eser chavayos de milui heyin. It has 10 chavayos de milui heyin. So he wants to say this is seen some kind of a rule here. He says that the chavayas of Ben in a so let me read his words again so I could. He says back to the bottom of the left column on Reish Kaf Tas. He says Asher Malchus he chavayah de milui heya. No problem. L'hiyos kolula me'eses spheros. He wants to say that each one of the spheros of Malchus is going to be a chavayah de heyin. So it comes out like this. It has 10 times Eser Havayas the Milui Hain connected Eser Sefirosam. B'chein Havayas the Milui Hain. So then the file itself, he oile b'gematria ben. So what's going to happen is you're going to have 10 bens. B'eser b'pam im shem Havayas the Milui Hain shul b'gematria ben. Haim oile b'gematria Basil. Basil is what? Is 480, 490 plus 3 is 520. Over there is boyer hatechelis. Inyan of the chelis. You like that? He says, actually, we have a little bit more. So now that I brought you this, he says, after that we're learning here now, now you understand the chelis, and the only way that you can get the chelis, this is what the rabbi is telling me, he says, is by going through this complicated machination here of putting all of these numbers together and winding up with the gematria of the word pasil. Torah doesn't use the word chut, but we have a reference to the fact that you can use that combination of numbers to produce a chut. But the Torah doesn't use the word chut. So therefore, we have to look at Malchut herself. So Malchut herself is a combination of 10 52s, because each one of the spheros, which is, I think, something I hadn't really thought about before, is that each one of the spheros of Malchut is going to be a complete Havaya in the Milui form of 52. And that's going to make 10 times 52 is 520. And here's your last reference. And this is to me, like, this is all thin ice. But he's telling me, that's my thinking about it, or my word for it right at the moment. He's telling me that that's Malchus. That's what Malchus is. Malchus is all these different combinations of different possibilities that add up. And when they add up, you see the reference. This is something like he says. So let's read a little bit more of the Rav. Ki be'inyan detacheda b'tzida b'sefer hazoyer, of the Tikuni hazoyer, ma'amarim sheniraim shalcholkim zelazeh. You see a lot of places where there's arguments about this or that. So exactly, and I guess they're arguing about where do you get this Indian, your counts here on the Techelis. For Rav Miyashir should call the Shmuas Emes, and the Rav answers like this: all of the Shmuas are true. There's no machloikas at all. He says that Techelis baromas b'shlosha b'komos. So there's three different places that you see that the Techelis is mentioned. He said of im calls that aim bezechas stira, but even so, there's no contradictions. But Ma'amari Azocher v'Chatikunim Kevin shall call who emes, because all of it is 100% true. So let's say, where are those places? He says the chelis is a b'muach haguvuros shebechachma de'ima. Let's read the words again. He said the chelis comes from the muach haguvuros shebechachma de'ima. So the chachma de'ima has also, just like his 10 spheros, and it has a das, and in that das there's a muach haguvuros over there. So or he made muach haguvuros because he has it in plural. So I assume that he means the gevuros of das shebechachma de'ima. Which we said before, so there you're missing, and so therefore you have to bring in the chud techelis. Let's talk about the muach gevura de chachma now. Muach gevuros de chachma, nikra malchus de chachma. That's called the malchus de chachma. Why? So since the chasadim in the das, they go to their anpin, but gevur nishbar the look, and so therefore the gevurs go to the no. I'm looking for the word techelis. We call arba b'muchan nimsacha b'chachma de'ima. So all of the mochin that we find in the chachma of ima. So that means in the das of ima. Heim koya b'techilach b'koda b'chilach mochin debina de abba. They were originally the abba deka. So let's see what he says. They came from abba. Of the nibsa the fizeh shal techelis he called the shloshos bechinos. So the techelis, so you find in all three parts. What is what? B'malchus. So because they're part of the moach hagevuros the chachma, hanikra malchus the chachma, which is called malchus the chachma. I don't think I really caught that. Understand why it's called the malchus the chachma. We could look at that again. We have no time. Beis is b'muach chachma the ima. And bebina the abba. So we said the chachma of ima was originally the bina of abba. Okay, that's it for today. You can try to look at that piece again. I have a little extra time, so I'm going to look at it again to try to understand how we got this. And we have to start on number Kuf Pe Mem Hey. He says, right? That is the center left, Muach. The Ima, Ima is a Yaakov, the Milui Hayin. Okay? So therefore we have to complete the chut which is missing. So so it's called the Malchus Chachma. Why? So since the Gevuros of Chachma would be the lowest level of Moach, because and since the Moach of the Mochin, Kevin Shechasadim Nishbayim Lazah, because the Chasadim they had nothing to do with the bottom. They had to go to Zeranpin. The Gevuros Nishbachs look, and the Gevuros, where did they go? They built up the no. So he wants to say, what is the main building block? I guess he says he wants to say it's the Gevuros of the Gevuros to Das, because which is, I guess, true. That's what all goes into the no. Because Arba Mochin and Imsala B'Chochma the Ima, so all the four Mochin now that are found in the Chochma of Zima of Ima. So once again, Chochma means, as you look at Ima in a gross way, she has 10 spheros, but each one of the 10 spheros has 10 spheros, and that's what he says. But the Chochma de Ima, he looks inside of there and he says there are Arba Mochin and Imsala B'Chochma de Ima that is incoming to from the Chochma of Ima, spreading down to the rest of the spheres in Ima, there are four Mochin. Before the Chiluf, all of the Chochma that winds up in Ima was originally the Bina of Abba. Nimsa the Fizeh at the Chelis, he becalls Shloshasach Bechina. So it comes out like this, is that these colors, the color that we're talking about is from all of the other colors combined. Shlosha Bechinos, three Bechinos. Echod comes from Malchus, and so we're talking about, again, these words are Heim Koya B'Techila Kodem Bechila Mochin Debita the Abba V'Nimsa the Fizeh Shat the Chelis, the color itself. It's in Bechol Shloshas HaBechinas in all the three different aspects, which are what? But Malchus. The Haine Shaharech HaTechelas Hu B'Muach HaGevuras the Chochma. Malchus, that's called the Malchus. I don't know, I'm not sure exactly how it got to be called Malchus. So he said because all the Chasanim are gone, and this is the bottom of the Mochin of the side of Ima. So therefore that is the side of Bina, which is the side of the left. So therefore, this is the bottom of that. That's the Gevuros Das would be the lowest part. So I guess he calls it the Malchus. That's my guess right now. Hanikra Malchus, the Chochma, which is the Malchus of Chochma. He says the Gevuros Das are going to be the Malchus of Chochma. But Muach HaChochma the Ima, also from the Muach HaChochma the Ima. That's also the Muach HaChochma the Ima, which was originally the Bina of Abba. Then he said, "Bina the Abba." He b'tachida bina the Abba because it's originally the bina the Abba. But nimsa the fizeh shatchelis who b'malchus b'bina b'chochma. Okay, so I went through it a few times. I haven't got all of that understanding of exactly where they are and how they are, but he did say it, and if I have chance, I'll read it another time and try to understand it better for the future. This is Baruch Fleischman of the Tikkun Elevator Kollel.